Okay, thanks, David. I'm glad to be here. Here means in the colors office, but also in the Four Pees Café. And yeah, I wanted to start with proving that we also have a colors cafe, at least here in Berlin there is. I was able to find one at Kurfürstendamm. I wasn't able to go there yet due to COVID. Of course, it's closed. So we will have to live with what we can find in our virtual world these days. So anyway, what's new in pdfToolbox? Yeah, what's new in pdfToolbox since we've released pdfToolbox 12.0 in autumn last year? Actually, two versions. We've released 12.1 in February this year, and 12.2 is about to be released. Mark confirmed this is latest tomorrow. If we are lucky, it will show up on the download pages already today. But anyway, starting with Friday, April 9, you should be able to do everything I will showcase in this presentation using your own pdfToolbox. Yes, David said, I'm Dietrich von Seggern, Managing Director, Color Software. So what's in it? What's new? It's three groups actually. What is new in fix-ups and actions? What is new when it comes to checks in pdfToolbox? And what is new more in interactive in pdfToolbox desktop using test mode or process plan editor? Yeah, it's various things. So it's nothing, all the features are really touching various areas of pdfToolbox. There is no common headline on it. So we will jump into topics in this presentation. And as David has just said, okay, just speak up if there is any question or use the chat or whatever. I would be glad to answer anything in the course of the presentation. So what is new in fix-ups and actions? The first one is related to image creation, preview generation on command line, something that is often done when pdfToolbox is integrated into workflows or products. Often you want to create a preview of a page in the PDF file. For the ones who are in packaging or label, you should know what processing steps layers are. Processing steps layers contain content that is not actual print content. So I have an example here at the right-hand side, a packaging where you have lots of measurements in it and maybe a die line or so. So things you don't want, usually you don't want these things to show up on your preview. So there is a simple command line parameter that you can use from pdfToolbox 12.2 on. So this is new. It's just in the upcoming release. And that allows you during preview generation with a save as image command to exclude processing steps. And the other improvement also in the release tomorrow is if you have not a label, but rather a PDF file with various pages, it's more, you have more versatile ways now to determine which pages you want to get previews from. So up until 12.2, you could only say start page and last page. And now you can use what we call a page range schemes. So that allows you, for instance, to create previews from the first two and the last two pages in a PDF file, or from every 8th page or whatever. So the scheme, the page range schemes are quite powerful. So you can create expressions for whatever page patterns, page number patterns you want to have. Okay, moving on.
Two questions already, Dietrich. You're not going to do this quickly here today, I think. The first one is on the processing steps. And the question is whether it's always excluding all processing steps, or whether you can somehow make a selection that you would still want to see.
Yeah, no, it's always all processing steps. If, of course, what you can do is you can beforehand adjust the visibility of the layers, and then that will be taken into account, so the initial visibility. But it would have made the command line interface too complex, in our opinion, if you would want to address all possible processing steps, and then you can even have custom ones. So we decided that this a convenient way to exclude everything is good enough, and then otherwise you would have to do some special preparations.
Okay, and then the other question is about these split schemes, and the question there is whether this is exactly the same as what is used during split PDF commands.
Yeah, and then the answer is very short, yes.
Good.
Exactly the same. Okay, cool, thanks. So next topic is really for tablet publishing, online publishing, maybe not the stuff that you're doing every day, but in times of virtual events and online experiences all the time. Also, even if you're mainly concerned with print and pre-press, it's good to know what's going on there. So when you have a print PDF and then you want to publish it at the same time online for tablets, for instance, then you often have the problem, you have very complex PDF files with transparency reduced, contents of lots of objects, and that may take some time when displayed on a tablet. And even worse, often we have new objects that are more than one object and very close to each other. So when being printed, you don't see any lines in between, but these lines become visible on a tablet. So what you want to do usually is to create one image of the whole page. The downside is, as you can hopefully see here in the presentation, the downside is that the text gets blurry. So you can use 100 ppi. Of course, you could use 1000 ppi, but then you would have problems with the file size. So that is not a good way either. So what can we do about that? An obvious solution is just render everything. So just convert everything into an image except text. And that became possible, I think, in pdfToolbox 12.0. So there is a filter that you can say in the convert page content into image fix up. There is a filter that allows you to exclude page objects. And then you can say exclude text. And then you would end up with, in my example here, still sharp text contours. The problem then is what is happening if the text is partly covered. And that may happen in this case by bad design. I've just put a blue box in front of my text, but it can also happen during transparency flattening. So the flattener creates objects and you don't even see that they are partly covered, but there is some overprinting object in front of your text. And if I would now say render the page except text, then of course the text is put in front of the image after the operation, and then the text is not covered anymore, and that is not what you want to do. So we've got a problem here. And the solution requires some explanation. The solution uses text rendering modes in PDF. And what you need to understand is, in order to understand the solution, is a text in PDF can use one of 8 different rendering modes. In almost all cases, you would use render mode 0, and that is just filled text. But you could as well use fill and stroke text. Then the difference only is that you have a line around your filled text object. And you could also use render mode 7, which uses the text as a clipping path. So that means the text is not really visible, it's not filled and neither stroke. It's just used as a clipping path for other objects. And then we will now see how we can use these capabilities in PDF in order to resolve our problem. The approach is a 2-step approach. In the first step, we just change the render mode 0 to 2 so that it strokes and fills. And in this case, our text here, the all-purpose slicer, just appear thicker. I've just added a line. I think it's 1 point line around the text. And then, of course, because I'm using the same color, the text just becomes slightly thicker. And then the area of this text is rendered into another image. And then that image is, the text is kept, but now we are using render mode 7, which means clipping path, so that we clip the image that we've just created from the area here. We're using the clipping path to clip it back to the original text. And after that, the text still appears sharp, but is covered. So I have another slide here where we can see it. I've got 2 images. The background image without the text, because I've used a feature in pdfToolbox 12.1 actually, so that is already possible in the current release. That renders only the background, and then in front of it, we've created another image, and just ignore the gray here, because the gray is not visible. There is a
Dietrich, the screen does not update again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least at my side.
What do you see? You see tablet, a slide with a title?
Yeah, no, I see it, yes.
Okay. And do you now see a slide with a title, how it works, additional clipped text images?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That's what I'm showing. Yeah, and then we've got 2 images here in this area. One background image without text, which is very blurry, and then in front of it another image which is clipped, so that it only lets the text through. But what we've done, we've just not kept the text, we've created an image of that text, so that what is shining through is the original area where this text was. So, and that means we still have the blue here. Hopefully I'm able to explain what's happening here. Yeah. And we can do that. I have a short demo, so we will just do it live, so that so maybe then it becomes more clear. And of course, what you could do then, you just use a 2-step approach. You combine the 2 steps in the process plan, and then you can do it. So let's have a look how that works. I've got a file here. This is a file, and I'm using the object inspector. to demonstrate what we have. So we have our vector object in front. Do you see my, no, you don't see it, and no. Okay, we have a vector object in front, the blue bar. We have the text here, which is covered by the blue bar, and we have the red image in the background. And now when I run the process plan, so just the two-step process plan that we've just seen on that file, and we save the file to whatever results. It asked me for the image resolution for the background image, and let's just use very bad resolution, so 50 ppi. And then it processes the page. And then if we now go here with the object inspector, we see we have one object in the front, which is our text, the clipped text. And in the background, we have an image of the whole page without this text. And then of course, where the other text is, there basically it's the same. And when we zoom into that area here, we see that everything is very blurry here. The slicer is very blurry, but the text is very sharp. I hope that you can see it at your end as well. Okay. That's for that. Tablet publishing. Yeah, and that is basically, we are using two features, two fix-ups here in pdfToolbox. Two fix-ups. There is one convert page content into image, and that has an additional option, which is keep text as clipped images. And the other fix-up that we were using is a set rendering mode for text, which allows now to change the render mode from 3 to 2, and to also specify the line width. Okay. Okay, that was that. We keep in the area of online publishing, but now it's more documents, PDF documents that we want to publish somehow for download, and we want these PDF files to have bookmarks. However, the bookmarks are neither not present, as in my example here, not present at all, or they just are not what we want to see. So many applications can create bookmarks, but not exactly in the way the publisher wants them to appear, as in this example. So that here the publisher wanted them that the bookmarks open the respective page with a chapter at the top without changing the zoom factor. And that was not possible with the application that they were using. However, that application was able to create structure tags, as indicated here by this icon at the bottom in pdfToolbox. So what you can do is you can create bookmarks from headings. There is a fix-up in pdfToolbox. And that would create these bookmarks, as you can see here on the screenshot. And then when I click on embedded files, it will jump to embedded files. However, this here doesn't have all the options that you can have for zooming. So it always creates a destination so that the page is zoomed to window width in your viewer. So there is another fix-up that you can use that then adjusts the page zoom for bookmark destination, and then there you can say inherit zoom, which means it doesn't change the zoom anymore. Yeah, so maybe that's enough. So maybe I think it's very detailed and probably not so important for most of you. So just keep in mind, pdfToolbox can be used for documents that are being published online to create whatever bookmark structures you want to have and to adjust the zoom to whatever requirements you might have.
But the first fix-up only works if the document is tagged, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. You somehow need to have, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Of course you could, no, that's it. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. That's about fix-ups and actions. Now checks. Objects close to each other. That was also already in 12.1, so it's already in the current release. And that is for print processes where you can't process objects that are too close to each other. So in some print processes or whatever production processes, objects that are too close to each other are creating problems. So there is a new check in the group context-aware object detection that checks whether there are any objects too close to each other. The problem here is that assume you have a page with a zillion of objects. Comparing each object against each other object takes a long time. So, and that is the reason why it was such a check was not present in context-aware object detection, or as we name it, sifter, in the first place. What we've introduced here is the ability to limit the number of objects. So you could say, because usually in the production processes where you want to use this check, you don't have very complex pages. So what you could do is you set up the check, limit the number of objects to, let's say, 100 or maybe even 500, but not more. And then you can say, if the number exceeds your limit, then either don't run at all or just run up to the limit. So for the 100 objects that you have specified. Yeah, and then it will find the object. So in this example here, it will find the two R's and the objects that are close to them, but not the objects here at the bottom because they are far away. So I've used 3 millimeter distance here, and then you can create a report if you want, where the 4 objects that are too close to each other are flagged. Yep. Yeah, I'm seeing the question, can this be used to check for objects close to a page box? Not easily, actually. I think you can check for that with Sifter already, so you wouldn't even have to use this check. If you would want to use it, then you could, you would have to create a page object first from the page box. So you can do that by outline the page geometry boxes. However, again, as I've said, there is an easier way to achieve that by using a different Sifter check.
You can use the reaches into edge area of check, for example, and that would be much easier. That's designed for that normally.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as I've said, so in this check, the real problem was that we had to check any object against all other objects. So every object against all other objects. So that was, from an implementation point of view, the problem here. Anyway, there are 3 more minor changes in the checks area. There is a new, and all of these are only in the upcoming version 12.2. There is a new check that allows for checking the total number of nodes on pages. There was a check that checked the number of nodes per object, but not the total number of nodes on a page. And there was a request for it, so we've implemented it. And then there is a sophisticated difference for the effective ink coverage checks. The effective ink coverage do some rendering of the pages in a PDF file and then allow you to find out whether the ink coverage is below or above a certain limit. In some cases, this check is used for identifying empty pages. And in other cases, it's used to find out whether there are areas on a page where there is color, but the color is too, the color value is too small to be printed. So let's say in Flexoprint, where you would want to have at least 10% ink amount, you want to find areas on the page where the ink amount is not 0, but let's say less than 10%. And in order to cover both use cases, there are new operators. So if you want to identify empty pages, you say you use the operator highest value lower than, and then you get the highest value. And if that highest value is lower than 0 or exactly 0, then you don't have any ink on that page. And if you use less than, any empty period, so 0% will be ignored, but only ink between, so higher than 0, but less than your threshold, let's say 10%, is identified. Does it make sense? So, cool. And the last one, yeah, I think it's easy to understand. It's very specific, but in some cases needed. So you have XMP metadata. It wasn't possible so far to directly check whether an object or a document uses a certain value for a specific XMP property. That now becomes possible. So it was possible by quick check. Then you would have to extract all metadata and then analyze the metadata, and now you have a more straightforward method. Okay, we are leaving the area of checks now, and we are entering into the more interactive areas, the test mode. And then there are new features there. It's a snap view and the diff panel. And these things usually can be explained better when looking at it. So let's just use the same, no, not this one. That one. So I have my PDF file here again with all the objects, and now I'm using a slightly different process plan here, and you will see for what reason. So I'm using my 2 steps as before, and then I have another check here, which is list images, and I'm just have entered it to be able to demonstrate how that works. So I'm using test mode, and again it asks me for the target resolution. I say 50, and as you know, in test mode it runs in some mode where not really a result can be saved, but which allows me to find out whether, in this case, my process plan is designed nicely so that it works according to my needs. What I can do right now, I can use the diff mode here at the top. So if I click on diff, it internally renders the PDF, and it should actually, yeah, whatever. It took some time, so it now shows a difference image between original and result. So I have my original here. It takes some time to update. I have original here, I have result here, and I have diff here, and then I can easily see which areas of the page have been changed. And in this example here, almost everything has changed except text, because we use our smart text mode here, and everything else has changed because we are using such a low resolution. And in addition to that, I have a snap view here, and that is the reason why I was listing the images. It's also possible now to click on any objects here in my result view, and I can see in the snap view what objects that actually are on my page here indicated. So this is the whole page image. And here I have the mirror text indicated by a red line, and at the same time displayed at the bottom in snap view. Yeah, it's just when you use a test mode, it gives you more capabilities to find out whether everything works according to your needs. That's that. Next is process plans. Yeah, that is nice. Also usability. Yeah, I have another demo for that. We go to the same process plan here. What became possible now, I can drag a rectangle here to select. In this case, I've dragged the rectangle around these two steps here and the connection, and I can then drag these two objects. I can use the shift button in order to select one more object. So it just makes it easier to create nice designs here. Yeah, again, shift would select two objects, so I can whatever. I can play around with it. The thing that has changed on that way is up until now, it was possible to move the canvas with just using the mouse. That is not possible anymore because the mouse now is used to draw a rectangle. So use a shift bar at the same time, and then you can move the canvas. And the other thing that has changed is I can move and step towards the edge of my window here, and then it automatically scrolls the canvas. Yeah. Just more fun to use it now. That's that. I think we will prepare a page in online documentation that just summarizes these changes, but I hope that they are intuitive enough to be used without using that page. So let's not use, let's cancel here. That's that. Yeah, one more topic, that is EPM. And EPM is enhanced print mode as far as I remember, but since David is much more better prepared to explain what that actually is, I asked him to step up.
Yeah, so just a short explanation. EPM is indeed normally stands for enhanced print mode. What it actually does depends on what type of EPM, because there are different things that you can do. But generally, it's a technique where, for example, you would print a file using only 3 colors, cyan, magenta, yellow, and not black. And by doing so, you save, theoretically, you save 1 out of 4 inks. And then there is, of course, a reason that we use black ink. It's because the combination of cyan, magenta, and yellow typically is not a very good approximation of black. So there are some refinements to that, but in general, EPM refers to a technique where you can skip printing one separation to make it either cheaper or quicker to print the documents that you're interested in. Yeah. And there was a bit, we added some features in pdfToolbox 12 that had to do with the comparison of documents, but then comparison based not just on pixel comparison, but based on a delta E comparison between 2 images or pixels in those images. And one of the reasons for doing that was to see whether we could come up with a process plan that you can then use to test whether a document is, or certain pages in a document, is ready for EPM or not. In other words, if I print this, is there going to be a very big color difference if I print it using EPM? And you need something like that because not all documents are created equally. And for some documents, it would actually work quite well. Other documents, you would end up with a result that is not desirable or not acceptable. And so you need a test to distinguish between the 2 types of document and to decide which ones you're going to print with APM and which ones you're not going to do. And while we were investigating, there's I say we, there is a little group that you could be part of if you send me an email. There is a little group where we discussed some of the results and looked at the possibilities. While we were working on a process plan, it was discovered that some things were not possible. And we came up with a number of small feature requests. And now it's Dietrich's time. You're muted, Dietrich. It's still your time, but you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I know. Whatever. Yeah, so somebody keeps muting me. Whatever. So yeah, as David just said, it turned out that there are a few limitations with a process plan and specifically with the compare step that we introduced in pdfToolbox 12.0 for EPM. So the compare step allows you to compare the current result of the PDF file as it was processed in the process plan with a previous instance of the same file on its way through the process plan. And when you use that compare step, it's the last step of a process plan, you want to be able to put the file, let's say, in the error folder or get a return code depending on the result of the compare step. That wasn't the case up until 12.1. So this was already in 12.1. But in 12.1, it changed so that when the compare step finds a different, then the return code of the process plan indicates that there is an error. And if there isn't any difference, then the return code indicates that there is no error. And an additional change was that there now is an area threshold in the compare step that allows you to specify how big an area may be, or if the area where the threshold is hit is above a specified area only, then compare steps creates an error. Yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to say. As you've heard, so I think the most feedback was for the process plan editor thing. Not surprisingly, that is only, I forgot to mention that in the course of my presentation, that is only becoming available to you in 12.2. I already have it, but this is going to change probably tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, thanks for hearing. Thanks for asking, and I don't know. That was that. Now I'm at the end of my slides.
Good. Thank you very much. If there is anyone who still has questions, then
there is one.
You can, of course, still ask them. So there is one about user units and bleed in 12.2, Dietrich. I don't know whether you know what the status of that is, or should we look at Mark for that?
Mark's shaking his hand, which I think the Americans, for a German, shaking hand always means no, but I think shaking hands for Americans means yes. Yeah, I'm not sure what these issues are exactly, but in any case, they seem to be fixed.
So yeah, we had some. Where's my microphone there? So I jump in. We had some issues regarding user units, and if I'm not fully mistaken, we have some fixes for bleed generation for pages with user units as well in the upcoming release.
User unit and bleed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There was one issue. I remember. Yeah, we've changed the behavior for user units, an internal thing for PDF file. And they are now better taken into account when you generate bleed, because then sometimes you need to increase the page size, and sometimes you need to introduce a user unit only to be able to create bleed or to make space for the bleed, and that has been improved.
So you can test that tomorrow, Cedric.
Yeah. Mark shaking his head again means it's
yes,
not
sorry, I already muted me again.
Yet.
And I'm almost done with our regression tests, which are always quite extensive.
Yeah,
and they are looking very good, so the release should be ready tomorrow.
Mark is still in the mountains on the top of the remaining QA bugs. And yeah, the plan is to go down by when the sun goes down, and then you will have the release. Cool.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that is it for today. Let me remind you that next week there is another cafe. We have a series actually of 3. I have to be careful when I say that word, or my HomePod will start talking to me. We have a sequence. I'll do that. We have a sequence of 3 cafes that will talk about color, pretty basic stuff. So explanation of the essence, if you want, of color, and where most of the more advanced stuff is based on. That will not be given by me, but by Michiel. And the first one of those is next week on Thursday, and then I think every 2 weeks is the next one of that sequence. So if you haven't registered yet, you can register for that. Go to the events page on the Four Pees website, and you have all the upcoming cafes there, and you can already register for all the ones that you're interested in. Then you'll also get reminders to join and stuff like that. If meanwhile you have other things that you want us to talk about, do not hesitate. I'm not saying that because we don't know what to talk about. We have a plan for the next, still next 4 or 5 months probably. But those things also shift and change. So if there is something that you would like to have covered, don't hesitate and send us an email. You can send that to the normal email addresses or directly to me, it doesn't matter. We'll make sure it ends up where it needs to be. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Dietrich, for the explanation. And I'm sure I will see many of you in an upcoming cafe.